Years ago, I worked at Target. I've had many jobs since then, but one of the creepiest things that's happened to me came in my time there. So, I was still fairly new to the job. I should also mention that I was really young when I worked at Target. I was 17 years old, and it was literally the second job that I ever had. I lived with my parents and was in high school at the time. So, I had been working there for maybe 2 or 3 months. I was a cashier, and one night I worked until 9:45 p.m. After getting off, I left Target and was walking in the parking lot to my car. Like right as I was leaving, I noticed this one guy who looked a little older than I was. He was wearing a red shirt and khakis, and I realized that he was probably a new coworker. I had never seen him before, but Target is a large store and is always getting new workers. I remember that the guy said hi to me, and I said hi back to him. He then asked me if I was just getting off, and when I said yes, he told me that he was as well. I asked if he was new, and he said yes, he had just recently started. He asked me how my shift had gone, and after I told him about it, I asked him what he did. I hadn't noticed him at the registers, so I figured that he wasn't a cashier. He told me that he did a little bit of everything, and then said that he had been all over the place that night. Looking back, that's kind of an odd answer, but I didn't really think much of it at the time. As we talked, we were both walking out in the parking lot towards our cars. Then I remember that he asked me where I lived. I told him the basic general area, referencing a business that was pretty close to my house and right outside of my neighborhood. I remember that he said, "Nice, me too." I had not recognized him as having gone to my school or anything, but I guess it was possible he went to another school. I didn't bother to ask him what school he went to though, because just about then I arrived at my car. So I told him to have a good night and I was leaving now. The guy was nice and he said good night and kept walking. After I got in my car, I saw him get into a car that was parked adjacent to mine. I briefly looked at my phone like I normally did before leaving. The other guy seemed to do the same thing. Then I left. I began driving home, and I noticed that the guy started driving behind me. However, I thought nothing of it at all. He said that he lived right by me, so obviously he would be driving the same way. It took about 10 minutes to get back, and when I approached my neighborhood, the guy was still following me. As I turned off for the road right before my neighborhood, I remember seeing the guy keep going straight. I figured that's where he lived in that area, and I kept going. Now, this road that I was on, like I said, is right before my street. It's a very long road that also has a very low speed limit. So I was slowly making my way down, and after a while, I noticed a car pull onto the road. We were the only 2 cars on the road at this time, and the headlights looked the same as my coworker. I thought that it couldn't be though. I kept going and then turned onto my street. I drove to my house, which was not that far down. I parked in the driveway and then got out. In that time, I didn't see anything. However, right after getting inside, I noticed headlights in the street. I looked out and saw the same car that my coworker was driving down the street very slowly. I literally ducked down from the window, even though the chance of him looking into the house were slim. I really thought it was suspicious now what he was doing. We had lived on this street my whole life, and I had never seen this guy before. I was confident that he didn't live here. That made me suspicious that he had been following me. I'm not sure if he noticed my car in the driveway or not. The rest of the night, I didn't see the guy, and I worked at Target for about 3 months after that. That entire time that I worked there, I never saw the guy again. I realized months later how strange that whole ordeal was. I don't think the guy worked at Target at all. I think he was just pretending to, and then he claimed to live in my neighborhood so that he could follow me home. Sure, maybe it was all a coincidence, but I really feel like it wasn't. I'm just glad nothing bad ever happened. My girlfriend works at Target, and sometimes I pick her up from work. Normally she drives herself, but I remember that a few months ago her car was in the shop for several days. So I agreed to pick her up from work at Target. She was supposed to get off of work at 10 p.m., which is the time that they close. I arrived a little bit early at probably about 9:50 or so. I texted my girlfriend letting her know that I was there, and she texted me saying that she just had to finish a few things and would be out. So I parked towards the back of the parking lot and in a random space. The store was closing soon, so the parking lot was almost empty. There were cars scattered all over, which I assumed to mostly be just employees. After parking, I took out my phone and started watching random YouTube videos while I waited. I remember that at one point, I noticed something out of the corner of my eye and I looked up. There was a woman walking through the parking lot a long ways away. I couldn't tell where she had come from because it didn't look like she had just left the Target store. The woman appeared to just kind of be walking around. She was also going pretty slowly, and she was wearing short sleeves and no jacket, even though it was almost freezing outside. It seemed odd to me, so I watched her for a little longer. She walked a little ways, and it didn't really seem like she was going anywhere in particular, just kind of almost pacing around. I found it a little bit odd, but I paid my attention back to my phone after a short time. Sometime later though, when it was nearly 10 o'clock, I looked over to the store to see if my girlfriend was leaving. She was not, and then I looked around and noticed that the woman was now in another place. She was still walking around, and I looked back to my phone again. Soon it was 10 p.m. My girlfriend still had not left, but I expected her to at any moment. I looked around again. This time though, I noticed the one lady who had been walking around the parking lot was behind me and pretty close to my car. My heart sank as I saw her walking in my direction. My car had been running the whole time because it was cold and I had the heat on. The woman then approached my passenger side door. She came up to the window and looked in and then started to knock on it. I was about to roll down the window just a crack to see what it was that she wanted, but the lady's knock on the window quickly turned into a bang. She was knocking harder and harder. I did not roll the window down. Soon the lady was pretty much pounding on the window as hard as she could. At that point, I put my car into reverse and backed up. She started to chase after me as I did so. I kept going and moved to the left. Then I put my car into drive and quickly went away. The woman briefly chased after me but was not able to keep up. I went to the front Target doors hoping that my girlfriend would just happen to be leaving, but she was not there. So I drove around the parking lot and then parked at the complete far opposite end to where I had been before. I did not see the crazy lady anywhere. After I parked there, I texted my girlfriend, telling her about the woman who tried to break my window. My girlfriend still hadn't left, and I figured that she was finishing whatever it was she had to do before she would leave. I kept sitting there, but then, seemingly out of nowhere, the crazy woman appeared again. She came charging at me. I was quick to put my car into reverse and back away from the spot. This time, I was able to get away from her before she reached me. I drove around the parking lot to the other side again, and this time I noticed my girlfriend leaving. She was finally out of Target, and I quickly drove over and let her in the car. Then we left the parking lot and got out of there. My girlfriend seemed to think the story of the lady was quite funny. To me though, it was actually very creepy. I'm not sure if the lady was on drugs or what. That would be my best guess, but why she kept coming after me, I have no idea. One Saturday morning a few years ago, I went shopping at Target. That was kind of my routine. I would go shopping every Saturday morning at about 8 or 9 o'clock and get groceries and the things that I needed for the week. I would usually get most of the same things, and at that time the store was generally not busy yet. So on this particular Saturday morning, it was like any other. I drove to Target, which was only like 5 minutes away, went inside and started shopping. Like usual, the store was not that busy. I was inside for maybe 15 or 20 minutes getting everything that I needed. Then I checked out and left. I walked back to my car in the parking lot, got inside, and drove home. Nothing about the experience stood out to me in any way. However, several hours after arriving back home, something strange happened. I got this notification on my phone from Instagram. It said somebody had tagged me in their post. However, the username was one that I had never heard of before. It was like random words and then numbers that didn't really make sense. I looked at the post, and it was a few slides of pictures and then a video. They were all of me at Target earlier that morning. A few were of me inside the store. None were really that great of quality, and I was partly obstructed by an aisle in some of them, so this person may have sort of been hiding. Then there was a video of me walking in the parking lot to my car. The video appeared to have been taken from inside another vehicle and slightly zoomed in. When I saw this, I instantly felt very creeped out. I did not know who had done this or why. I looked at the user and it was their only post. They were not following anybody and had 0 followers. It was like they created their account just to post that. I didn't know what to do. Later on, I wanted to figure it out, so I went back to Instagram, but it was all gone. The post and user and everything had been deleted. I was so creeped out. I never ended up finding out who did it or why. After that, I changed my routine for a while. Whoever did that could have known that I shopped at Target at around the same time every Saturday morning, and I hadn't noticed anything strange because they seemed to have been sort of hiding. It's fairly easy to film someone with a phone and not look too suspicious. I'm just glad that nothing else creepy happened after that. Still, I wonder about it sometimes who did it. Years ago, I worked at Target for a little while. I worked in the clothing department and it was normally pretty easy. Things wouldn't get busy there like they normally would in grocery, so it was less hectic. I actually started in the grocery department when I was at Target, and then after about a month I moved to the clothes. Very frequently I would work closing shifts. We closed at 10 p.m., so it wouldn't be incredibly late, and I didn't mind too much. For the last few hours of being open, things were generally pretty quiet too. On this night in particular, I had some things to organize. I heard the announcements about us closing during the last bit of time that we were open. All the guests that were there made their way to the checkouts and left. I still had some things to do though, so after closing, I figured I would be leaving at about 10:15. So obviously, the clothing section at Target is pretty large, and it takes up a good amount of the store. Shortly after close, I was making my way to another area when I noticed something. There was an area with a wall that had clothes hanging on it with hangers so they would be displayed. At the base of the wall next to it, there was a person laying on the ground. They were mostly obstructed, and I'm surprised that I even noticed them. However, it looked like they were trying to hide. I walked over and asked what they were doing. Then, after a few seconds, they moved. After they got up, I saw that it was a man. He was pretty short and thin and wearing a blue shirt. Very quickly, he walked around the corner behind the display wall. I walked around to see where he went, but he was walking quickly away from me at that point. I called out to him saying that we were closed, but he did not respond. At that point, I took out my walkie and I radioed in that there was a customer still inside of the store, and I gave his description. He was going away from me, and I started to try to walk after him at that point. Moments later, I saw him. He was now standing right in the middle of one of the main walkways in Target. He was just standing there and staring at me. The guy honestly made me nervous. He hadn't said anything at all, and he was acting very strange. I got within maybe 50 feet of him, and then he started to walk in my direction very slowly. I asked him what he was doing, but he didn't answer me. As he got closer, I backed away. I didn't know what this guy was doing. He continued to head towards me at about the same pace. It was really odd. I quickly turned and went away from there to find another coworker. A short time later, I found Monique, who worked nearby. She was walking towards the clothing department and had heard what I reported. I told her the basics of what was going on. However, we did not see the man when we went back to the spot where he had been. Another coworker, Dan, was also on his way over. We searched a little bit of the immediate area but did not find the guy. However, when the three of us were together, about 2 minutes after that, the man came into view again. This time he was coming from the sporting goods aisle and was holding a t-ball bat in his hands. We were afraid that he was going to use it as a weapon, so we didn't get too close to him. The man calmly walked towards us but did not say a word, and he didn't answer any of our questions or commands for him to leave the store. We figured that we had to call the police at that point. So us team members left the sales floor and we went into the employees only area at the front of the store and locked ourselves in. Then we reported the man to the police. All the other employees soon joined us there to get away from the man. The cops got there, went inside, and arrested the man a short time later. We were glad that he was gone and that nobody was harmed. Thankfully, he didn't do any damage to the store either. I'm not entirely sure what his exact plan was, but that was my craziest experience from working at Target.
Our official merch store is finally here. If you want to support more of our channel, check out our merch shop. The link is in the description down below. See you on the next video.